Okay, so this is a demo of installing a LAMP stack on the Raspberry Pi, and that's the demo unit of Unit-9 for CSC270. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to follow the lab. The link will be available in the information for this unit. All right, so I'm going to just go through the motion. The first thing I'm going to do is to update Raspbian. So I'm connected to my Raspberry Pi here. Some of the installations are going to take several seconds, so I will shorten the video and just make it as short as possible, skipping all this wait time. All right, so we are done with that. So now we have clean packages updated to the latest version. We're gonna install Apache, which is the web server. So that's Apache 2. The -y at the end instructs apt-get to answer yes if there's a prompt for do you want to continue, yes, no. One or several, then yes is going to be automatically provided, so I don't have to wait for it to prompt me, it will be done automatically. Alright, so it is installed, so now the next step is to type this command. Enabling module rewrite. To activate the new configuration, you need to run system restart Apache 2, and that's the equivalent command to that, so I will do so. Alright, so now my web server should be running. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a very simple HTML file and test it. So I'm going to go to the var www.html, which is the place where our web pages will reside. So cd var www.html, do an ls. Okay, there's one index HTML file, so actually I can even try that and see if that responds. So we're going to go, let's see, pi, no, 270a easykit.net, and alright, this is the default HTML page. Why did it do that? I don't know. So this is the default HTML page that shows that Apache has been installed. Gives me some information about different things, where things are located, and so on. So that's a very good start. So now I can serve HTML pages. So let's create our own. So I'm going to go back to my lab, and we're going to move the HTML file. So let's take a look here. I'm going to rename this. So the way to renaming it is to move it under a different name. So sudo, because that file doesn't belong to me as Pi. Actually, let's take a look. It belongs to root own this, and I wouldn't have a write access to that file, so I cannot, maybe couldn't change it, so that's why I used sudo. Alright, so now I'm going to create a file with just this information in it, and I'm going to call it index.html. Alright, so see my very simple web page, HTML body, h1 header 1 hello world. Let's make it CSC270. Save. Alright. ls, so now I have this new file that I've created, index.html, and then the previous one is now saved under a different name. So let's go here and reload this page. Alright, hello CSC270. I'm serving, so this is my Raspberry Pi acting as a web server and serving a page that is in its directory var www .html. That's the subdirectory where pages are going to reside. So that's the default place. And if I want to add some more pages, that's where I'm going to put it. All right, so far so good. This is good. We're going to install PHP. So we're going to add PHP to Apache. So PHP may already be there as a language. Actually, we can check PHP minus version. Is PHP already installed? Oh, no, it's not. Okay, so we're going to install it. And here, I'm going to install PHP and lib Apache 2 mod PHP. So not only the language, but also the interpreter, but also libraries to connect Apache and PHP together. So I'm going to copy paste this here. So it's wrapping, but and again, it's going to take some while. And all right, so this took over a minute. And so now PHP should be installed. So let's try this. Okay, so now PHP version indicates that we have PHP 7.3. So 7 is the latest major release. So 7.3. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to create a PHP page. So I'm where I should be and I'm going to edit a file called hello world PHP. So I'm going to run this command here. Okay, and my file will contain just that. So question mark PHP, I'm running the PHP interpreter. PHP, can you run echo hello world semicolon, and then that's it. Save this. Control X, Control C. Okay, ls, just to verify. Let me do that at the top. ls, so now I have this new file. So hello world.php. I'm going to go back here. And so little note here, you saw that I didn't add the name of index.html because that's the default page that is going to be loaded if I don't specify anything. Here, now that I do have a file that is not hello.html, then I'm going to have to specify its name. And I see my hello world being printed. And actually, let's customize it as well. Hello world of CSC270. Save this, reload that. All right, it has been customized. So it's small font, but should be visible. All right, so we are good. So now we have Apache web server with PHP capability. So, all right, restart. I didn't restart it. I should have, but that's fine. I'm going to restart it. All right, so now we're going to install the MySQL database server. So I have to install. So MySQL was bought by Oracle, which has its own Oracle database system. And so when that happened, the open source quality of MySQL was compromised in some ways, and a lot of people thought that MySQL was not going to be free and open source for very long. So a new effort was started to create another open source database system that would be compatible with MySQL, and that's MariaDB. And it's fully compatible with MySQL, and that's what we're going to install. So that's this. Sudo apt-get install MariaDB client and MariaDB server and answer Y for any questions. And that is started. And again, we'll regroup when it's all installed. All right, we are done. This took also over a minute. And now we need to restart Apache because hooks to MySQL, the MySQL server were added, so we're restarting Apache. All right, we have to secure the installation by writing this command, so we're going to do that. We're going to be prompted for some information. So let's run this. Enter the current password for root. Well, right now there is none because we just installed it, so I'm going to press enter. Okay, successfully used password. Set the root password. Yes, so now I'm going to set a new password, and I'm going to use the same password that I'm using for my Raspberry Pi. And you know what it is. Okay, success. By default, installation as an anonymous user, allowing anyone to log into. Remove anonymous users. So I'm going to say yes now to all the defaults because they are good defaults to adopt. So enter. Disallow root login remotely. Yes, only root from the Raspberry Pi will be allowed to log in. Remove test database and access to it. Yes. Reload privileges tables now. Yes. And that's it. So now we are done with the securing of the database, and I'm going to restart it because we just modified some of the configuration files. Okay, it should take a few seconds just to do that. All right, and we're going to test whether we can connect to it. So if I sudo mysql -u root, it's not going to ask me for my password because I'm using sudo. But normally, if I don't do sudo and I say mysql -u root, I would have to provide a password, so I would have to say -p. Okay, so now I'm going to connect to the MySQL database server using this command. So sudo mysql -root. All right, I am inside now talking to the MySQL server. If you've ever done that, you'll recognize this prompt. I'm going to ask it to show the different databases. All right, so this is what an empty database server looks. It has basically three databases, and that's all. So now I know my server is working. It's responding to queries, so I can quit. All right, and I'm going to restart Apache. Always a good idea. All right, so now I have installed Apache, PHP, and the MySQL server. I can test to see if my PHP integration in the database is good. So I'm going to create a simple file with this command. So that's a PHP program, and I'm going to call the PHP info function. And I'm going to call my file PHP info PHP. So the file is going to be, wait, I should Emacs it. All right, and I'm going to copy this. All right, so that's all I need. Run the PHP info function. So you see the parentheses indicate that that's actually the name of a standard function included in PHP. So run this. And now all I have to do is to load this file in my browser. So here, instead of hello world PHP, I will call for PHP info PHP. All right, and I have this huge long information and showing me all kinds of different limits, different options, different extensions that have been loaded. So it shows that it is all working here. And you see this, it has a lot of different features, basically. Let's look for MySQL. There should be 3 lines. Here we are, MySQL driver, MySQL I, MySQL ND. So the integration with MySQL server seems to be done correctly, so this is all good. Okay, I took a little break in my installation, and I'm resuming now. So Apache, MySQL, PHP are installed, so I have that stack, and now I'm going to install WordPress. So the way I'm going to do this is by first going to the directory where everything is located, and it's right here. I have these two programs, Hello World, PHP, and index.html. I can double check that they are there. So 270A. So that by default is going to bring index.html. That's the old one. So yeah, I've been doing other things since the beginning of the video, so I don't have the new one. And if I add this at the end of my URL, then I have a hello world with the date and time. So that's this program. So that's working. So PHP is working, Apache is working. I cannot test my SQL right now from here, but I will with my installation. So I'm going to execute this command, and that will go to the wordpress.org website, get the latest distribution of WordPress, and download it. So wget webget wget will do that for me. Should go back here, copy, paste. All right, it's going to take a few seconds. All right, it's done. I'm going to unpack the zip file. So let's take a look. So I have letter star extract 0 and F for file. So that's a zip compression. Anyway, so extract a compressed file, which is called the text. So have I done that already? Oh yeah, so now it's right here. It's called WordPress. That's a directory. So cd WordPress ls, plenty of files that start with WP. I'm going to make this slightly bigger so we can see this better. All right, so these are the WordPress files, and they're all PHP files. So that's good. The only thing though is that if you look at who owns this file, it's nobody and no group. So we need to change that, and we're going to assign the username and group name to www-data. That's it's a user and group that was created when we installed Apache. Apache has a username on Linux system, and its default name is www-data. So let's run this. chown means change the owner of WordPress, and the owner that I'm going to assign is www-data, and the group will also be www-data. And the -r says recursively, so if there's a directory there, then let's do that. So all right, so that's not going to work because I'm inside WordPress and I'm asking for my command to change WordPress. I have to say go back one level, and so my command is this because I am in WordPress. Okay, if I had not been in WordPress, if I had been there, then that command would have been fine. So all right. So make sure that you change the ownership so that Apache will be able to go into the directories and add new files and so on. All right, then we need to configure MySQL for WordPress. We're going to create a new database in the MySQL server, and we'll call it WordPress, and that's the one that WordPress will use. Then we'll have to tell WordPress afterwards that the database is called with the same name. So I can do that from anywhere, so this is a good place to do it. So you know the password. Okay. Show databases just to verify that we don't have the WordPress database. All right. And I'm going to look for the text that is bold. That's what you have to type. So here, nope, I didn't copy it. Copy. Create database WordPress, semicolon. So all MySQL commands need to end with a semicolon, otherwise it's the query is not accepted yet, so the interpreter kind of waits to see that. And now I have a very long command, and I'm going to enter it in several steps. So I can just say, oh, it doesn't work as well. All right, grant all privileges. I can press enter because I don't have a semicolon. It's going to wait for the rest. So that's the little arrow that I'm seeing here. So on WordPress stars, that means all tables of the WordPress database to root at localhost. And then I have to give the password of root. All right, so I'm going to come back here, and you know what the password is. I will block it in the video. All right, and then I've pressed enter, and the query has been accepted. Flushing the privileges means make MySQL Server reread the privileges of all the different entities in here, users and databases and so on. And then I can quit. All right, so now I'm ready to run WordPress. So if you can SSH to your Raspberry Pi using 270 some letter isagit.net, you can directly click here. If you SSH to your Raspberry Pi using the IP address of the Raspberry Pi, then you'll use that method. So I'll illustrate both of them. So I'm going to click here. The X is wrong, but that's okay. I will change it after. So the site can be reached, so that's normal because I need to change this X to A. I am A. Okay, so that's the file I will be getting. So WordPress is responding. It's not set up, so it's going to ask me to go through the setup. English is a default language. I'm going to continue. Let's go. All right, the database name is WordPress. Yes, that's what we created in MySQL. The username. So the information that you have to enter here is the database name, which is WordPress. The username is root. We're using root. We could have used another username that would have been more secure, but that's fine for this system. The password that you know. The database host is localhost because WordPress resides on the Raspberry Pi, which is the host for MySQL and the web server. And WP underscore is a standard prefix for all the databases. So, all right. So WordPress has checked that it can access the database, so we're good, and we can run the installation. All right. The site title. Well, that's going to be whatever you want. I'm going to call it DT's demo blog. Username. So that's the name I'm going to be using as a user of WordPress. So I'll just use my name. And the password, I'm not going to use this. I'm going to use something that I can remember more easily. So that's the same password I've been using on my Raspberry Pi for everything. Not very secure, but for us, given that the Raspberry Pi is on our local area network, we should be fine. Confirm. It doesn't like it that it's a weak password, so I'm going to confirm that. My email address, it's not going to send me an email, but that's all right. Discourage search engine from indexing. Yeah, but search engines will not be able to access it, so I'm going to install WordPress. Okay, it's going to take a little while. All right, success. User Dominique, you have chosen your password, so I'm going to log in. So that's what I would see normally when I decide to go back to 270a isageek.net/WordPress, and then I can answer with Dominique. All right, and that's the dashboard of WordPress, and I can create a new post. So add title, welcome to my blog. Start typing something. This is just the demonstration of a blog post, exclamation mark, publish, publish, view post. All right, here we are. That's a blog and it's working. So I've just decided to stay in here in a browser and not continue with that, but you'll have the same steps here. Yes, all the information that I've just entered is here. You have a post, and if you can do that, well, congratulations, because that's pretty tricky. I'm expecting not all of you to be able to do that. You may need some help debugging this. When you play with the Linux system, you constantly have to install, remove, reinstall things. That's kind of part of the game, and that's one reason that when you look at the number of laptops and desktops that run Linux, it's like 2%, right? However, for servers, which are maintained by hackers, geeks, people who live with Linux all the time, then you have 98%. So that explains that. All right, so this ends Unit 9. Which is the last unit for the Raspberry Pi, and that ends our lectures, video lectures for CSC270 at Smith College. And the rest of the time will be devoted to projects. All right, hope you've enjoyed the units, and I'll see you soon on Zoom.